Yes, we are live. Hi, and welcome. Welcome to the first in the series. So this is just going to be followed by more monthly workshops that will definitely focus on the future of work and what we can do to create a future of work that we're proud of and happy with. So, welcome to the first workshop in the series. Wellbeing at Work, a strategic leadership approach. And before we start, I just want to say for those of you who registered for the workshop, thank you for being here. Thank you for participating live. You use the chat function and the comments to ask your questions and contribute. I will also have a special gift for those of you who registered for the workshop. And then for those of you who are catching these either live or afterwards, and you still want to make the best out of it, I also have a special offer for you right at the end of this. So stay tuned because it will be there. All right. So let's get going because we have a lot of things to talk about. And again, anything that you want to ask at any point, put it in the comments, put it in the chat so that we can address it right then. Don't wait until the end of the session to talk about it. Okay. Before we start, I wanted to quickly introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, I am Roxana Radulescu, and I'm the founder of All Personal Training, Coaching, and Consulting. And what I do is I work with mid to senior corporate managers and also small business CEOs and help them become dream bosses and build dream teams. Because it all started with a dream, didn't it? I also design a lot of online learning programs for leading and engaging virtual and hybrid teams, and am the designer and facilitator of the Workplace Culture and Communication course, both for York University and Collège Boréal in Toronto. My background is 15 years in learning and development, also at executive level, in top legal consulting firms and teams, certified as a learning and development and HR practitioner, and also proud to be a TEDx speaker, also a podcaster and contributing author to several e-learning, online learning, and learning publications. So a lot of learning focus anyway. So feel free to connect with me if you haven't already on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to chat with you about anything related to learning and the future of work and building those dream teams right now. All right. So what's in our agenda for today? Well, a lot of things. That's why I said we have a lot to cover. So first of all, we're going to look at the well-being definition in the current context and a future projection. Again, working with lawyers for more than 15 years taught me that we need to define things before we actually start talking about them. So there we go. And then we're going to have a look at why and also how we need to define and redefine how everyone makes an impact in their role and organization, and what that has to do with well-being, with strategic leadership, with helping people be motivated and engaged. And then we're going to talk about how we can rethink well-being for strategic leadership and look at some ways in which we can bring in motivation, engagement, diversity, inclusion, and success. These are all of the nice things that we want to bring in our organizations, in our teams. And at the end of the day, we want to feel successful, right? That's where we're moving towards. Successful results. And as I said, I have a special gift for those of you who registered, and thank you for doing that. And I also have a special offer at the end of the day for those of you who are catching this live and want to talk about this topic more. All right. So before we start, What does well-being mean to you right now? And I love, love, love this drawing from Irina Block. And I really don't know who she is. And like, I'm just giving credits to her for this drawing because I think a lot of us resonate with what we're seeing here. And I want to ask you, whenever you're catching this, put in the comments, how does that resonate with you? How has working from home or working at home impacted you during this past, 1 year, even more than 1 year right now? What does that mean for you? And for those of you who fully resonate with working at home in this period of time, let us know again, how was it for you? What were your struggles? And what solutions did you find? Did you find any solutions to overcome those struggles? So what does well-being mean to you right now in this context? Think about it. I think it's a good question to ask, even for those of you who lead teams, manage teams. Apart from asking this question from yourself, but ask this question to the team and then wait for them to answer. What does that mean? Oftentimes we ask people, what do you need in terms of well-being? What do you need? What can we do for you? And they don't know how to answer. They don't know how to address it because it's something that hasn't been happening a lot in organizations. Well-being wasn't necessarily associated with work. It was associated, yes, with something that you do in your own individual personal life, in your own spare time, but it was not associated with work. So that's why I think that is an absolutely important question to ask from yourself and also from the people that you're working with. And let's look now at the well-being definition in the current context. And really, the dictionary definition of well-being is this: the state of being healthy, safe, comfortable, and happy. That's it. Easier said than done, I know, but this is a definition. Again, I learned that you need to define things. We need to define things before we start talking about them. I think if we did that more often, by the way, communication would look totally different. And we won't bump into communication roadblocks so often. So that's the dictionary definition. So what does that have to do with the workplace? Well, in fact, it has a lot to do with the workplace. And let's look at the workplace well-being dimensions here. And believe it or not, even if you didn't have a well-being program that was formalized in your organization before the pandemic, you still had, or possibly had, some workplace well-being dimensions, like physical well-being, and look at whatever benefits or subscriptions you were offering to people or that were available to you, right? Gym, yoga, even talking about nutrition, healthy lifestyle, health plans, all of the health plans and insurance, health insurance, for instance, that was provided by the companies. That was part of the physical well-being. It has to do with that because it offers that specific feeling of safety, and it talks about health, right? So whenever we're talking about health, all of the organizations had something in place for that. Also looking at mental well-being. Well, a lot of you, and then again, you can let me know in the comments and you can participate and say, okay, what is it that you used to have? What was the offering there in your organization? What did you appreciate as somebody who works in that organization when it comes to mental well-being? And the discussion was more around stress prevention, sometimes teaching people how to meditate. A lot of organizations calling a lot of inspirational speakers, a lot of teachers, a lot of trainers and coaches in the organization to talk to them about how they can prevent stress, how they can prevent exhaustion, how they can meditate, and how they can find the work-life balance. Only that right now, to be honest, there is no work-life balance, and life means both work and home. And that's when life happens. But we'll talk about that later. Also, how to take breaks, making sure also that your people or that you went and took your vacation time to allow for recharge and refresh time. So that was happening. That's what I'm saying. Even before we were talking about workplace well-being, and even if you didn't have a formal well-being program, you were still doing, and your organization was still doing something around well-being, only that we didn't call it that way. But actually, all of these dimensions are part of the larger well-being equation, right? Now, when we think about the social dimension, you know what I'm talking about. Team building activities, retreats, office parties, not so often maybe, but we did have some social activities in place for the teams that were organized throughout the year for our people, right? Financial, when we were talking about the financial well-being dimension, typically we would refer to salaries, bonus, special discounts or special offers that employees of a certain organization would have because they were working with that organization. So that would be sort of like what we had in mind when we were talking about financial well-being. Again, we didn't call it that way, but it was part of it. And then career well-being, we were thinking about career paths, promotions, training events, right? Offering some programs, offering some development path and development program for at least some of the people, if not all of them, so that they can follow a certain specific career path and understand when promotions are done, how they're done, what are your options of growth in your career as you're working with us. So again, these are some of the dimensions that we were covering and looking at when we were talking about well-being in the workplace, right? And this is before we even started to talk about well-being as much as we're talking about it today. So now what we need to look at is all of these well-being dimensions: physical, mental, social, financial, and career well-being. We need to look at them as online and in-person well-being initiatives. And I'm making the distinction here between well-being programs and well-being initiatives. And I want to encourage you to think about implementing well-being initiatives in your organization rather than top-down well-being programs, because that is what will make people feel more included. the way that we ran any kind of well-being programs before is not going to be sustainable anymore, because right now the needs are so different, and because we're moving towards different kind of workplace, especially when we talk about hybrid workplaces, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to see that all of the challenges and needs that people have, they're going to be so different. And the more of those we cover, the more well-being we're actually bringing in the organization on all of these dimensions. So think about well-being as initiatives that are run and initiated with and by your people. You're holding people accountable for these initiatives, and you are asking for their feedback. What are your struggles? What are your challenges? What are your wins and successes? What have you discovered that works for you? And what would we need to do more of to help you? And that's what brings the balance between all of these dimensions, because we can't focus on physical well-being all the time, but we need to add something extra. So apart from, exercise, nutrition, health, yes, but bring the sense of community in place. And for instance, when we think about the physical well-being dimension, what you can do is think about, what is it that I can offer both online and in person? A lot of organizations and a lot of the people that I work with offered online subscriptions to exercise platforms, gym, yoga, whatever it is, for their members. But what they also do for their employees, what they also do is they run a community as well. So for people who sign up for that particular subscription, you have a community, you have a group that you can subscribe to, and then you talk to people in your organization who are taking the same kind of exercise routine with you, who subscribe to the same kind of yoga practice, and you talk about that. Because we have been in isolation for so long, but we still were in isolation together because everybody was. So this gave us a sense of collective trauma that we all went through. And this particular kind of trauma can be healed with that sense of community. We need to heal it collectively. So yes, give me the individual approach, but also help me have access to a community so that I don't feel that I'm isolated. And now think about those people who are going to work remotely compared to those people who are going to work in the office. How are you going to help them connect? How are you going to keep them together? By creating this sense of community. And I'm going to talk about community also a little bit later in the workshop. Also, mental well-being. We need to think about it differently, completely differently than before. So we need to address cognitive and emotional mental well-being needs. And some ideas would be, a lot of organizations are offering counseling for their people, and it can be individual or group therapy or counseling, but that is something that they're thinking about, and that is a priority right now. Because if I don't feel that my mental well-being is addressed, I am not going to be able to perform at high levels on a long term. That is essential right now. So apart from meditation, breaks, vacation, also add the cognitive and emotional and counseling initiatives. Social well-being through social shares or team or group coaching, support groups. And again, that sense of community created for all of these kinds of initiatives. So actually the social dimension will be in place for all of the other dimensions. The social part of what we're doing now is going to be super important because it helps people get out of that isolation that has been there for a very long time and that still is there, even though we're slowly returning to the office, returning to working with each other in person. That sense of I've been isolated for a long time and I need to reconnect is still there. We're all craving to connect and reconnect. So, any kind of social component to all of these dimensions is going to help. When we talk about financial well being, we're talking about bringing in financial education and financial advice. A lot of people got laid off, and you might have people in your team working for your organization right now whose partner maybe was laid off, whose parents maybe were laid off, and they need ideas and they need help in understanding what financial support is available to them, how they can look at it differently, what they can do from the financial perspective to feel that they're more safe or build on that financial safety. And also career well-being. For career well-being, we need to rethink the way that we have been looking at it so far. Because really what we are looking at is definitely discuss about inclusion and motivation. Yes, career path and promotions, but also having that support system in place for everyone and for all of the teams through coaching, through mentoring, and through self-paced and bite-sized learning. Again, everything with a social component, because this is what is going to help them feel included and also motivated on long term. That's what we're looking at. We've been basically in survival mode so far, right? And that is fine. But for how long can we perform from this state of survival? We need to slowly help people move from survival to thriving, maybe to managing and then thriving. This is what we need to be able to offer. And when we look at career well-being, people need to feel supported. People need to feel that there is a sense of growth, there is a sense of development, and they have the support that they need individually. Again, we're looking at all of the needs of the people. It has people focused. So that's why I'm calling it well-being initiatives, because you can ask for feedback and you can have different people running different kinds of well-being initiatives. For instance, that's what we were talking about. You can run well-being networked initiatives, not top-down programs. And definitely ask for people's feedback on their challenges, their needs, and their wins. And then help them share those and help them create the well-being initiatives that work for them. And then you will have champions who are accountable to create and run networked support groups. And it doesn't have to be costly, because I know what you're going to say. Oh, but we've had our budgets cut and everything else. But look, all of these networked support groups, they're going to be run in-house by your own people. They're not going to cost anything. It will be what they're going to cost you is that you're creating a time and space that's available for them to actually meet and talk about something else than work. The reality is, when we were going to the office, we would have coffee breaks, we would meet each other on the hallway, and we would have our chats. We would have meetings that we would go to, or happy hours on Fridays, or again, the office parties or something like that, where we would have fun and not discuss just about work. So what you're doing now is make sure that this happens both for people who are going in the office and for people who are working from home. And also be flexible, because some initiatives are going to be there just short term and then they become obsolete because you don't need them anymore. And some initiatives are going to be there to stay. So be flexible to run them, have them run. And then when people don't need them, you don't offer that anymore. You offer something else. Go with what people need, rather than having a very structured but very rigid top-down program that costs us a lot and that people have to use because we're paying a lot of money for that. And so they have to use it. Whether they need it or not, they have to use it. And allow for trial and error. Again, some initiatives are going to work, some initiatives are not going to work. And we have to be okay with that. Because what we're doing right now is we're recreating the way that we're working. And of course, we're going to do that through trial and error. We're experimenting. We're not going to have a clear recipe of what we need to do exactly step by step right now. Nobody does. We're all discovering how we can make things better for our people and what we need to do. All right. So let's move on and talk about why do we need to redefine how everyone makes an impact and how we can do that. And we talked about motivation and engagement and inclusion. Well, let's start with checking some of the effects of well-being in the workplace. And I have some stats for you for remote and hybrid cultures, which I'm going to address in a minute, but stay with me for a while. So we have 21% greater profitability, 17% higher productivity, and 10% higher customer ratings. Just because we have some well-being initiatives in the workplace. And the truth is, when we look at well-being, workplace well-being really needs to make sure one thing and one thing only, that people are being well. That's it. That's the focus. And so the focus is going to be on people. That is why run well-being initiatives with the people so that the focus clearly stays on them. So let's look at some hybrid models that are run by organizations as we speak and that organizations are considering right now. So the first one is remote first, which means, okay, most of us are going to work remotely and we're striving to get to that point where we're going to be fully remote, but we're also going to keep the office space for those people who want to go to the office. So going to the office is something that's going to be optional. The main focus here is going to be remote first, right? So everybody works remotely. And that's good to know because, again, when you're looking at well-being and where you're looking at how your people are well in your organization, then you have to know how you're going to work so that you know what you need to put in place so that they have access to it. The second hybrid model is office occasional. And now here we will go to the office and also work remotely, but we will all need to go to the office occasionally. So it's not like in the remote first model where we have people who might not even go to the office at all. They're fully remote. They maybe work from another country, and that's fine. They don't have to go to the office. With office occasional, you have to go to the office maybe one day a week or one day every 2 weeks or 2 days a month or something like that. So that is the difference between the two of them. And then the third one is office first with remote allowed. And what that means is, yes, the focus will be we'll all go to the office, but then if you need to work remotely, then you can do that. You can take a day or two, depending on when you need. What that means, though, is that we need to make sure that we have clear policies and guidelines in place, especially when it comes to communication, right? So we need to know what each of these mean. We need to know, for instance, for office occasional, what that means. If we're going to the office and you expect me to be in the office, how often or what days a week? Are we gonna leave it to the people to choose, or are we gonna have clear specific days of the week? And that can be discussed and decided as well on smaller team levels, right? If you're a bigger organization. If you're a smaller team, that's easy because you need to have sort of a structure in place where you're discussing when somebody is going to come to the office, when somebody is going to work remotely, so that you all know where you are and how you can work together on those specific dates. But that's why we need crystal clear policies and guidelines. And also we need to make sure that we're clear on who works from where and also when. And especially when we talk about leadership, that also needs to be clear, not just for the leadership, but also for everybody in the organization. Because the truth is, we might say that we're going to work on an office occasional basis. So you have to be in the office occasionally. But if the leadership is in the office all the time, guess what's going to happen? People are going to follow that model. And then how much does that have an impact on promotions and praises in the workplace? How much are you promoting based on the fact that you're seeing that person more often in the office versus not knowing what they're doing because you don't see them? They work remotely, but that doesn't mean they don't perform. They might even be performing better. Because the truth is, a lot of people have discovered that they do work better from home or remotely than if they have to go to the office. A lot of people also discovered that remote work is not for them. So that's why we need to have a look at what people need. We need to ask them. First of all, we need to ask them. Again, not top down, so that we understand what kind of hybrid model we're going to offer. And then when we offer it, we make sure that we all stick to it. And we make sure that if leadership says we're going to go for office occasional, that they communicate, hey, you know what? I am going to be in the office one day a week on Mondays or on Tuesdays or whatever guideline you will have in there. But they need to say that and actually stick to it. What this translates into is that, first of all, we need to understand and also then meet people's different needs for different environments. So again, when we think about this kind of initiatives, we have to think in person and online and create a sense of belonging and inclusion. which also fuels motivation and purpose, because without them, you can't feel motivated without feeling included. You cannot. Think about it. If I know that you're not going to care about my needs, about who I am, about my ideas, about what I can bring to the table, how long am I going to contribute for? How long am I going to feel motivated for? That's where we need to understand that knowing what motivates our people, how they contribute, how they make an impact to our team, our organization, to the way that we work, that is essential, because that also tells us how we can help them feel included, so that we get that kind of intrinsic motivation that we're all striving for. We're not talking about just offering something from the outside to them, but also fueling that intrinsic motivation that we all want and appreciate. Stop and complete the sentence. I feel I am making my best impact when. When is that? When do you feel that you're contributing at your best? That's a sentence to think about. And I would be super curious to find out some of your examples, some of your thoughts on this. When do you feel you're making your best impact? And also, how is that related to you feeling included? To you really feeling that you're heard and appreciated and valued? That's what it's all about. That's why we need to know how people are making their best impact and contribution. So how are you doing with that? We can now get help from the data. And I love that, because I was looking for that when I was in learning and development. I was looking for something like that, because we know we can measure personality through a lot of personality assessments out there, and experience and expertise, but we weren't able to measure how people make an impact in their role. So we weren't able to clearly answer some of these questions. Can this person drive change? Can this person deliver? Can this person bring the team together, or plan for success, or drive improvement? Is this person innovative? We couldn't measure for that before, but now we can. So we have, that's where I come in and I tell you that you have a tool that's available right now that helps you ensure that everyone makes a game-changing impact in your organization. And that helps them understand how they make an impact. That also helps you understand how you can help them feel included. And we have a case study that we're gonna have a look at in a few minutes right now. So we have the GC Index, which is a tool that profiles the ways in which people feel most engaged and energized when it comes to making an impact upon their world. So when we look at this, I want you to think about yourself right now. Think about how you make an impact in your world, in your role. You might be a game changer who comes and creates original ideas. They come with the most revolutionary ideas and transform the future. They don't care about the past, what's been happening before. They care about what we can do differently. And then you might be a strategist, who are those people who make sense of the ideas and create the plans and have a structure in place and help us prioritize. They're the ones who map the future. Or you might be an implementer who builds the future. So they make ideas happen. They're all about being hands on and delivering. Or you might be a polisher. And these are the people who make those services or products that exist already. They take them and they make them brilliant because they develop them further. They see they're all about quality and development, and they create a future to be proud of. Or you might be a playmaker, somebody who orchestrates the future and helps everybody work well together. Now, what I love about the GC index is that you don't have to be one or another, because really what it does, it has these 5 key proclivities or 5 key dimensions that we're talking about: game changer, strategist, implementer, polisher, and playmaker. But the truth is that you will have a combination, and there are 100,000 possible combinations here. So you might be a game changer strategist, or a strategist implementer, or a playmaker polisher. It can be all sorts of combinations. So it doesn't add any labels, but it helps people understand what fuels them and what motivates them. And it helps the leadership understand what helps them and what motivates them, but also how they can help their people feel included and motivated. Because really, it helps you create an environment where everyone can make their best impact. And when it comes to well-being, think about the definition that we were talking about at the end, at the beginning of the workshop, not at the end. It's all about helping people feel safe and comfortable that they can contribute. You're creating that environment. It's all about that. Creating the environment where they feel they can contribute to the best of their abilities, to make the best impact that they can. And look at this. You might have a team of people who are a combination of all of these dimensions, and you will have the green bubble who are game changers. So you want revolutionary ideas of what you need to do and how you can do it, you go to the game changers. The blue bubble will be strategists. Not a lot of strategists here, but you still have a few people that can help you with the planning and strategic thinking and prioritizing and thinking about whether or not we have the right resources right now. What are the market trends? And all sorts of information that a strategist will definitely easily think about because it's just natural for them. Or the red bubble, the implementers. Hey, how can we make this happen? How can we get things done? What do we need? What deadlines do we need to work towards? Or the polishers, how can we improve the services or the products that we're offering right now? You go to a polisher, they're able to transform a Ford into a Rolls Royce, for example. They're all about the quality, about how we can, they look at something and they say, okay, we can make it better. And here's how. Or the brown purple bubble, who is the playmakers. You go to them and you ask them, okay, how can we involve everybody? What do we need to do to help people understand that we're supporting them, and how can we support our people right now? How can we help people collaborate better? So that's what you can do. That's the kind of data that you can get right now with the GC Index to help people understand how they're making their best impact and contribution, to help you understand who you have on your team and what kind of impact they make, and also what are the priorities. Because typically when I look at my impact, if I'm a game changer, my priorities will be, how can we transform the future? How can we transform the way that we work? How can we come up with ideas that help us do that? That will be my priority. So I will feel included when people ask me, when people include me in the discussions, when people ask for my feedback and my ideas and my opinions about what we can do that hasn't been done before. It's the same thing for everybody. Depending on the kind of impact that we're making, we're going to feel included by one element or another. So when we talk about well-being initiatives, again, look at especially what you can do with the GC index when it comes to mental, social, and career well-being. That's where the focus is going to be. And you have all of these initiatives in place, and just knowing how your people are making their best impact is going to help you run these initiatives flawlessly in the organization, because you're going to have the data to support all of these initiatives. So let's see, what are some sustainable ways in which we can increase motivation, engagement, diversity, inclusion, and success, right? That's it. Like, the end result has to be, we're aiming for success. So how can we rethink well-being for strategic leadership? Well, first of all, point number one, ensure that everyone feels included. And I love this quote. I don't know who said it, unfortunately. I looked it up, couldn't find anything, but I really loved it. Leaders amplify the uniqueness of others. So we're not looking at the differences. And really, this is where the GC index comes in as a tool for you that helps you understand how you are unique, how your team is unique, how your people are unique, and amplify that so that they can contribute to the best of their abilities. Amplify the uniqueness of others. And here's a case study that I was mentioning before, a case study of engagement and motivation and inclusion, through inclusion actually, because it comes from Nike, who used the GC index to help their people, all of them, all of the teams, feel included so that they're more motivated and engaged. Because their motto is, it is our nature to innovate. So when you talk about innovation a lot, the game changers and the strategists who work with ideas, of course they will feel included in the conversation. I mean, that's what we do. It's our nature to innovate. And I will feel included in that because that resonates with me a lot. I am in that space of ideas. But what about implementers and polishers and playmakers? What about the people who are more pragmatic and who are all about being hands-on and delivering results? Well, because they were looking at how all of them were making their best impact and contribution, they understood that, you know what, as a game changer, I think of something that nobody else thinks. As a strategist, I envision possibilities and I see the future. But then also, importantly, implementers understood that they build something that nobody else builds. See how that included them in the conversation when you talk about innovation, building something that nobody else builds. The polishers were clear that they improve something that already exists and they create a future to be proud of. And the playmakers understood that they accelerate possibilities through relationships. So all of that was related to innovation. But it was suddenly clear that as an implementer, I'm not just this pragmatic individual who has nothing to do with innovative nature. No. I actually help build something that nobody else builds. That's the power of data. That's the power of what you can do and what we all need to do when we look at motivation and engagement. We really need to look at how we help our people feel included in the conversation. Number 2, boost team communication. And I love this quote, wanted to share it with you. In teamwork, silence isn't golden, it's deadly, especially now in this kind of environment. So I have two different types of communication that I'm going to talk about. Not too much, but I'm going to give you some ideas of what you can do about that. We all know virtual meetings, emails, keep a balance. We all communicate formally through virtual meetings and emails a lot. Like we're flooded. It's overload, virtual meeting and email overload. So try to keep a balance. And we can do that because what we can look at, first of all, think about the benefits you can offer online and in person as well, and communicate that effectively. So you can look at meditation or fitness app subscriptions, for instance, right? Apart from the typical gym subscriptions that you would offer, you can offer that. Or paid lunch once a month. And when you have people working both from the office and remotely, you can also have them, like, catering is there for a reason. So when you order lunch for people who are in the office, you can order it for people who are anywhere in the world, right? It doesn't matter, but have that sense of consistency and community in place. And also think about team and individual coaching programs. These are going to be super effective because they're going to help people talk about something else and work. Again, when we meet right now, we meet it not spontaneously. We don't meet just because I happen to pass you by on the hallway. We meet because I sent you a calendar invite. And when we meet, we talk about work all the time. So have some team and individual coaching programs where people can talk about something else than work. They can talk about themselves. They can talk about their development, about their challenges, about their needs in a structured, formal way, but still they that creates a different kind of environment where they don't feel guilty for not talking about work. Or team development programs. These are more important than just individual development programs right now. Because yes, you can offer them individually or you can offer them to teams, but make sure that you're offering them in a way that is bite-sized, also self-paced, and has a social component in it. So that people can exchange ideas, people can help each other, sort of like the online gym community or a runners club, right? People go and they run individually, but then they meet in that group and they discuss the challenges. It's the same thing. That helps the team actually implement. You have to offer that kind of support from when people learn about something that's possible all the way to mastering that. So that needs a lot of support to implement it. That's what it does. So think about the team development or even individual development as a program, as a support program that also helps them implement when they need to. Revive phone calls. Revive phone calls. Just that, because here's the thing. If you're an auditory person or a sensory one, especially, having a phone call rather than a virtual meeting where you're glued to the chair or to the desk, that's refreshing because you can talk and move at the same time. And what that does is, there are studies out there, you can search for that if you want, but it really gives a boost in the creativity and innovation levels because we're moving and brainstorming at the same time. And we come up with ideas that we might not have come up with if we were glued to the chair. So whenever you can, revive phone calls. That's essential. Or have that balance between virtual meetings that are also visual, video, and phone calls. And also shared workspace. You can still work together even though you're not sharing the physical space. You can share a virtual space. And that is, I talked about this to some of the clients that I'm working with, and some of them even went in that hybrid mode, and half of their team goes to the office, half of their team works remotely. And what they do is they have the team working remotely still present in the office, because they connect to a Zoom meeting or Teams meeting or whatever platform you have for virtual meetings, and they connect. And what that does is, we're not going to stare at each other through the screen. But what that does is, it allows me from my remote workspace, it allows me to still hear you in the office as you have your coffee chats. And maybe I jump in, I grab a coffee and I jump in and we have a coffee chat together. What that also does is, I can ask a question in real time because we're working together. And I don't know something, I just pop the question, hey, Joan, do you know where we saved that document the other day? Because I can't find it. I have the direct communication with you. I'm asking a question as if I was in the office physically with you. But just because I'm sharing a virtual workspace with you, I'm logged in and we're together, even though I'm remote. That is essential. And think about ways in which you can do this in your team and in your organization, depending on the hybrid model that you're going to choose. For informal communication, the world really is your oyster. Also, remember the quote, in every job that must be done, there is an element of fun, because that is also what informal communication does, and also what we need to help people with as we're slowly returning to a more social environment, because we've done a lot of social distancing. So we need to allow people to socially reconnect in different ways. So definitely virtual breakfast, lunch, coffees, parties. Again, we will look at that from now on for the in-person and virtual component as well. So whenever I'm offering something in the office for the people who go to the office, I think about, how can I offer that? How can I help people who work remotely also have access to that? Think about it as concerts, right? There have been a lot of online concerts during the past 1 year. What we will probably see is that people will definitely pay to have their tickets and go to a concert physically. There will probably also be a ticket offering for people to buy remote tickets and attend the concert virtually. Obviously, it's not going to be the same experience, but I'm providing access to that. Access. Think about how you're providing access to everybody. Groups or chats that are topic focused. And that's where I come in and say, again, well-being as initiative. Ask people what they need and ask them to run some of these initiatives, like story reading or book clubs or musical people who love music and want to connect around that. Chefs, photography, people who paint, your Picassos, the Tech Top 10 Club. People, depending on their passion, you can have them create these groups and help them engage in conversations that are really important to them, that bring the passion in them, and that help them reconnect, and that help them understand more of what matters to them, what their priorities are, and learn from each other as well. And this is going to also translate into the workplace through more creativity and innovation, more ideas, more motivation, and more engagement. Definitely virtual working sessions. As I said, you have to work together, keep working together. You can share a virtual space and a physical space as well. You can keep sharing photos or recipes or solutions that people come with. Okay, number 3, building on the power of community. Because as I said, we need to help people heal from this collective trauma collectively, not separately. So, yes, you can offer well being, but again, if you make it an initiative, it will be for them and with them. So they have that sense of community. And I really love this quote on how community helps in the sports club world. And you can take that and run it in your organization. That's just the way things work in a dojo. Helping beginners is a collective responsibility of all the people who are more experienced. In fact, the more experienced the judoka, the greater the responsibility. And now, if you look at recreating your workplace culture, which is what we're doing right now, the power of community, that is helpful to give you the kind of sustainable success. So that means long term. And that creates that kind of safe environment for trial and error. That's where you need all of these clubs, all of these support groups, all of these initiatives that people want to even run, right? They're going to lead them. You will find people who lead one initiative or another depending on what they feel motivated by, how they make an impact, and what helps them feel included. You're creating that safe environment, and you help your people feel heard, understood, and valued, which means feel included. And you get support for new members. But here's the trick: support for new members is going to be support for everybody, because right now we are operating in a different kind of environment. And even if I've been working there for a while, I'm going to be working differently. Maybe I'm going to start working remotely more. So I will need a different kind of support. Inclusive coaching and mentoring, where everybody learns from and grows with one another. That's essential. And that's going to give us a healthy sense of competition. And that the power of community is focused on helping people become the best that they can be. And that, regardless of that, what that means for them, that is essential for inclusion. It's not our definition, it's theirs of how they can be their best. And 4, build on smart team resourcing. The truth is, the simple act of paying positive attention to people has a great deal to do with productivity. Well, yes, because if we understand different ways in which we make our best impact, we're able to answer to all of these questions. What are the team's strengths? What needs to be in place for this team to work most effectively? What will be valued? What is the team likely to pay least attention to? What tensions are likely to arise? What are the gaps or potential weaknesses in the team? And what does the team need from its leader? So that is how understanding the different ways in which people make their best impact, that's what's going to be helpful. So we can use the GC index for that. We can also use other personal development tools and assessment, and also team development tools and assessments. The more we understand about the people and about the teams that we work with, the more we're able to put well-being in place that resonates with them and that is relevant to them, rather than build rigid programs. So, top tips from today. First of all, well-being is inclusion, motivation, engagement, organization, culture, and long-term success. That is essential because it covers all of those dimensions. That's when we look at well-being right now, that's how we need to redefine it. We need to ensure that everyone feels included. We need to boost team communication, especially right now. We need to build on the power of community and build on smart team resourcing. And most importantly, we need to look at well-being as initiative, not as a top-down program. All right. So for those of you who registered and Thank you for doing that. I will be sending you a gift GC Index assessment and then strategy session at the end of today's workshop, because you deserve a gift for participating and wanting to take this further in your organization. And it will help you understand how you can bring well-being initiatives in your organization right now. Now, for those of you who didn't register but are watching this and are interested in finding out more, you will find all of the resources for today's workshop on the All Personal Learning platform. And I'm going to put the link in the description right afterwards. And you can book a strategy meeting to discuss your specific needs. So definitely use the link in the comments and click on it to book your strategy meeting. I still want you to make the most out of it, and let's discuss your specific needs right now. Now, those of you who know me also know that I love running my Lead for Legacy League membership, which is the global online group program for management and leadership development. And we run it as a community. So you're getting bite-sized content every week that helps you with practical management and leadership tips. And also, we're there for each other to help you implement that. We have weekly group coaching and strategy sessions and a private league community and support 24/7. Because leaders right now don't need to operate in isolation. They need to be part of communities, different kinds of communities, so that they get the support that they need when they need it. And so they don't operate in isolation anymore. We need to start reconnecting in a way that is healthy and helpful for us and for our teams. So that's also an option for you if you're looking at joining a community that can help you bring more initiatives in the workplace and change the way that you are currently working in right now. Okay, that being said, thank you so much for joining me today. When did the time go? My gosh. And you know what I will say? Learn different, lead different. See you next month on our next workshop in the monthly series. Until then, bye.